And there he is, and Yanez from the field. What are your thoughts on what you saw at the game, the crowd, post game? You got it.
Yes, sir. I heard you and Dayon discussing about it. I mean, it was exactly what we said it was supposed to be, or what I personally said it was supposed to be a week ago. It was a get right game, and that's exactly what it was. Although, yeah, just because it's the University of Houston, they did have to have a little bit of a headache to begin the game when it came to Sam Houston and how they were able to drive down the field and score a touchdown, and that's something that head coach Dana Holgorsen touched on in his post-game press conference. Specifically, the headache on that drive, the first drive for Sam Houston offensively, was how Houston's defense aided them with penalties, and quite frankly, some dumb penalties, like David Ogwegbu's roughing the passer call that really aided Sam Houston's drive and being able to get a quick boost right off the gates. That was the first ever touchdown for Sam Houston at the FBS level, and they made it look relatively smooth on that first drive. So in the back of your mind, you have that, it's supposed to be a get-right game, but to give credit to the defense, they were able to put that first drive in the rearview mirror, and quite frankly, they dominated for the overwhelming majority of the game. Quite frankly, for the remaining 57-ish minutes of that contest, the Sam Houston offense just could not go anywhere. And like you said, Kris, earlier in the show, or it might have been one of the comments, but this was, even just watching them warm up, you could tell Sam Houston's players look smaller than Houston's players, which is a great thing because Houston is a Power 5 program now, but you haven't necessarily seen that. Certainly, that wasn't the case a week ago when Houston played GCU, so it's kind of good to be on the other end of your Houston. And just overall, when it comes to the offense, we just finished playing that clip from Parker Jenkins, which we've touched on it a week ago. We touched on it 2 weeks ago. We touched on it UTSA. Every time Parker Jenkins was in the game, regardless of who the opponent was, it always seemed like good things happen. And I give kudos to the coaching staff, kudos to Jenkins for being prepared when, like you heard in the clip, that he kind of had an inkling that he was going to be the starter heading into the week just because of the amount of reps he was getting heading into this game against Sam Houston. And Tony Mathis was the one that officially told him that he was going to be the starter. And a great quote that Parker Jenkins had to kind of end his press conference on the way out, it was that when Tony Mathis told him he was going to be the starter, it just made him kind of focus more. It kind of put some pressure on himself that he needed to be a leader. He was the one that's going to be leading the running backs group because he was going to be counted on to be that starter, which, again, hearing him speak, you can hear the maturity in his voice. He has a strong mindset, considering that he's only a freshman. You wouldn't know he's a freshman just by hearing him talk in the press post-game conference. But can't say enough good things about Parker Jenkins. He looked like a Power 5 running back. He had rushed for over 100 yards, first time ever in his collegiate career. He scored his first rushing touchdown in his collegiate career, and then he scored 3 more before the half was over with breaking tackles. Again, that was some of the bright spots, some of the good things that we had been seeing in the previous weeks before, and they just really grew, and you got to see it for an entire stretch of the game. Now, hopefully that's some momentum, specifically when it comes to the Houston running game that has just been really inconsistent over the past 3 weeks. Going back to last week, it was abysmal last week. To see that something good when it comes to the ground game, and hopefully it's something that they can build on next week in Lubbock. It's one of the familiar Big 12 opponents that Houston's seen for the past 2-3 years, past 5 years. They've seen relatively often. So I think there's going to be that one Big 12 game where there's really going to be some kind of closer to a rivalry feel when it comes to just how familiar the two programs are with each other. And now that, like you mentioned, Kris, that Tyler Shook is injured, and I believe there was a report that I saw before heading to Dana's press conference that he suffered a broken fibula. Long story short, he's all likelihood not going to be the quarterback come next week when Houston goes up to Lubbock and plays Texas Tech in their first true road game. So maybe that's something that they can start stacking up some positive momentum, and then they can finally dethrone Texas Tech. Where they've been on the verge, certainly last season, and they just haven't been able to get over the hump.
Dayon is back with us, and I remember this while you're talking about Lubbock. Next Saturday's game is going to be emotional for Raider fans because I believe they're going to honor Coach Mike Leach and Dana Holgorsen being part of the staff. And Cliff Kingsbury, I think, will be there, put in the Ring of Honor as well. So that'll add some extra motivation for Texas Tech. Tyler mentioned potentially being out for the rest of the season. Andy, I don't know. Let me ask you this, because Swan brought it up.
Hold on.
About the penalties. Was Coach Holgerson asked about the penalties in tonight's game, the number of them?
He mentioned them, and particularly when it came to that first drive. Again, he said when the defense went on their first drive and Sam Houston drove down the field and scored a touchdown, he wanted to vomit. He wanted to puke when he saw that performance. But specifically, he highlighted the 3 penalties that again,
like
really
20%
aided Sam
dead.
Houston. They really aided Sam Houston in that drive and allowed them to score touchdowns. And I think that's something, looking at it from a just unbiased lens, Houston did what they were supposed to. That's the bottom line. It was their get-right game. But there's still some issues that kind of give you pause for a reason for pause and for concern. Specifically when it comes to those penalties. Some of them, a lot of them are just dumb penalties that just cannot happen. They're going to bite you in the butt when it comes to a Big 12 opponent. Not only the roughing a passer, but even the running into the kicker on 4th and 3 and later in the game on Sam Brown, where that it's going to be a change in possession, and they gave Sam Houston an extra first down. Again, Sam Houston couldn't capitalize that and turn it into, anything that hurt Houston. But against a Big 12 opponent, they're going to march down the field and they're going to make you pay and make you capitalize. And I think the biggest one in this game, and it was in that clip from Dana Holgerson, terrible execution to end the first half on the part of Donovan Smith when it came to that final play. There were 7 seconds left in the first half, and it looked like they were going to run one play. Hearing Dana Holgerson speak on it post game, he said that Donovan Smith had one look. He was either going to, if it's open, throw it. If it's not, chuck it out. And Donovan Smith didn't do that. He held on to the ball. Time expired, and they didn't even get a chance to get a field goal, which, again, little things that against bigger, better opponents is going to come back and bite them.